Hello everyone, welcome back to the Mass Retirees Weekly Update. Today's Friday, October 20th. I'm Sean Duhamel. Thank you so much for joining with us and tuning in again this week. Now, before I get going with the week's news, and I have a couple of things to report on, let me first remind everyone that today, on Friday, just in case you're watching this video after today, but on Friday, October 20th at 11 a.m., we will be holding our West Springfield area meeting. It takes place at the Sturrowtown Tavern. It's on the grounds of the Big E in West Springfield. The meeting will last from about 11 a.m. to around 12:30, quarter of 1. All Mass Retirees members are welcome at all of our area meetings, and you're also welcome to bring a guest. If you haven't been to one of our area meetings before, we get into whatever issues that we're talking about on things like this video you're watching, our newsletter, and it gives you an opportunity to ask us questions, for us to get to know you a little bit face to face, maybe talk about some personal questions or problems that you might be having related to your retirement. And it is, again, one of my favorite parts of the job, and I know that Frank and the rest of our team feel exactly the same way. Now, we serve light refreshments at the meeting, and we always have a cash door prize at the close of the meeting. So you got to stay to the very end, but we draw names out of a hat, and if you're there, and if we pick your name, you'll win a cash door prize. So it's really a great event, and we encourage all members, if you're able to come on out and join us. Now, on page 3 of the upcoming newsletter, and I'll get to that in just a moment, is our list of upcoming events throughout the end of this year and into early 2024. And again, we're going to get back down to Florida the first week of February and the first week of March, and we'll be reporting on those specific dates once we get into the new year. But with that, let me talk about what we are working on here this week and what we're looking forward to over the coming week. Now, on Tuesday, Nancy McGovern and I attended the public hearing of the Joint Committee on Public Service. The main focus of this week's hearing was on disability legislation. One of our association's bills, Senate 1630, which has been filed by State Senator Brendan Creighton, who's a very good friend of ours. Senator Creighton comes from the city of Lynn. This particular piece of legislation focuses on what is known as ordinary disability. So in other words, you get injured or sick, but it's not related to your job. It wasn't caused by the job. It is an ordinary disability. That benefit structure under ordinary disability in recent years has really fallen behind the times, and we are hearing from more and more either disability retirees or from active employees who are considering applying for an ordinary disability, and they're looking at the very low benefit level that they may have available to them, and it is going to be very difficult to support themselves and their family, and in many cases, if they're young enough, they have young children, and the benefit level, as I said, has really just fallen behind the times. It was originally designed to really mimic the benefits that are provided to private sector employees under the Social Security system. Social Security, of course, has the disability component for active workers who become either hurt or ill and are deemed to be disabled. That's a whole separate system than what is known as Social Security retirement benefits. But our ordinary disability system, because we do not participate in Social Security, is supposed to largely mimic what benefits are available under Social Security. And for many folks, unfortunately, it's just not cutting it these days. So even though this legislation would not directly affect current disability retirees, it would be prospective in nature. Our association, going all the way back to our founding in 1968, has always prided ourselves in being a leader in terms of retirement policy here in Massachusetts. And that means getting involved in leading the charge in many cases on issues, even though they may not directly impact current retirees. It's for the good of the system, it's for the good of everybody, and we're very proud to play that role, and this particular bill is just one example of that. Now, also at Tuesday's hearing, and I know that some members were actually watching this online, all public hearings now are hybrid in nature, meaning that even though they're taking place in the State House, and Nancy and I were there in person, you could also either watch or testify remotely online. And speaking of that, going forward, we're going to make sure that we're letting members know well in advance, and usually we know about a week in advance of when a hearing is going to take place. We're going to start making sure that we let everyone know when hearings are taking place relative to public retirement policy and public retirement legislation. So either A, you can watch the hearing online, or if you're so inclined, you have the ability to testify either coming into Boston to the State House in person or by testifying virtually. So a number of individuals were watching Tuesday's hearing because the main focus in terms of the disability legislation was accidental disability, job-related disabilities. And a main focus of that group of legislation was the accidental disability retirement of our public safety workers and our first responders. Similar to what I was saying before about benefits for under ordinary disability really not keeping up with the times, there are several examples of that related to accidental disability as well. Whether it's infectious disease, whether it's the impact of COVID-19 on first responders, the list goes on and on. And one of the particular bills that's garnered a lot of attention recently is legislation that's been filed by State Senator Cindy Friedman from Arlington that focuses on violent crimes or violent attacks on public safety workers. So whether it's police officers, correction officers, firefighters in some instances, who are violently attacked in the course of doing their job and become severely disabled as a result of that, there is some focus and attention going into what should the retirement benefit look like for those individuals, and should the current benefit be changed to reflect the changing times. Now again, most of this legislation, if not all of it, is only prospective in nature. So if you're already retired on a disability pension, this would not necessarily change your benefit. It is very, very rare. Almost never does the legislation go back in time and retroactively change benefits for folks. There are some exceptions to that, and we are certainly always looking to make sure that, if at all possible, current retirees benefit from changes in the law. But just like when changes are made that are detrimental to retirees, whether it be increasing the retirement age or increasing the contribution amounts that active employees are paying and things like that, those changes are also prospective in nature. So that's generally the way that the retirement system works. It's always looking forward and not backward. But again, there are exceptions to the rule. But that being said, it is important that we work together with the public safety unions, the firefighters, the police, the correction officers, and so forth, to make sure that everyone is well protected and that the benefit levels are, or at least remain, modernized to address whatever's happening at the particular time. So we were happy to be there on Tuesday. We're happy to lend our support to this legislation. And if things start to move forward, we will certainly be talking about it in forums like this and in our newsletter and so forth. The other big news of the week is that our November newsletter, The Voice, is finally being mailed to members. It should be going out in the mail today. So hopefully by early next week, the bulk of you will begin to receive the newsletter. We had hoped and planned that it would have already been mailed by now. There was a bit of a hiccup with the production process, with the printer. These things happen from time to time. It's unavoidable, particularly in the reality that we're living in today and so forth. These things are going to happen. But from what we've been told, is going in the mail today. We're always excited to get the newsletter out the door and to our members. We put a lot of time, effort, work into every edition of the newsletter. I think you've heard me talk about this before. We do all of the writing for the newsletter. Nothing is sent to us or comes in from the outside. It's written by our whole team here. And as much as I contribute to a bulk of the writing, I'm always in awe of the finished product. Bill Reary and Nancy McGovern and the whole team, along with our friends at Chameleon Design Group, who do all of the wizardry when it comes to the graphic design and making it look as good as it looks. I'm just floored by the finished product. I hope that you look forward to getting the newsletter. I hope you read it, because we try to make sure that we're getting information to all of you that not only relates specifically to you as a public retiree, but often is the case that the information that you're going to find in our newsletter and on videos like this and the weekly messages that accompany it, you really can't find it anywhere else. We want to make sure that we're getting you something that's unique to you as a public retiree, and I hope it's something that you find interesting and engaging and that you look forward to getting. So to kick off this newsletter, which again comes out 6 times a year, the next edition is November. We've already started working on January. But on the front page of the November newsletter, we lead off by talking about the COLA, and specifically the state and teacher COLA base, and our hope in our drive right now, our focus on creating a special commission that is going to realign the COLA benefit. This is very similar to what took place back in 1996, 26 years ago now, when we last saw a major COLA reform go through. That was very successful. And I'm pleased to report that since the passage of Chapter 17, which was COLA reform in 1997, virtually every single public retiree here in Massachusetts has received an annual COLA base that has been cumulative. And there are not many retirees around the country who can say the same thing. So we are very proud of that. However, we have a lot of work left to do. We know that the state and teacher COLA base in particular continues to fall behind of where it should be at this point. And we believe that the only way that we're going to be able to get things back on track and figure out a new funding mechanism, a new way to approach this, is by bringing together all of the key policymakers along with the pension experts and our association, and we'll figure this out and we'll get us back on track, and our membership will be better off. So that is the lead story in the newsletter. The following story, and the below the fold, as they say, is all about tax reform and the specific impacts of the Massachusetts tax reform on retirees. We think a lot of our members are going to benefit from the law that Governor Healy just signed just 2 or 3 weeks ago. So that information is in the newsletter. We also provide a full report on what's happening in Washington, D.C. in terms of the Social Security weapon, the GPO. There are now 6 different bills pending before the U.S. Congress, it's the House of Representatives and the United States Senate, that would either repeal or reform WEP and or GPO together. Now, of course, as we have been reporting, the sad reality is we do not anticipate any of these 6 bills, really any legislation relative to Social Security at all, advancing forward in Congress under the current circumstances. As I'm recording this on Wednesday evening, we don't even have a Speaker of the House. And the House of Representatives is completely paralyzed as a result of that. And even prior to this latest hiccup with the House leadership, it was not looking very promising for these bills moving forward. There is a strong disagreement over exactly what to do, whether it's repealing WEP and GPO entirely or doing something that would reform the 2 laws. And then more importantly, there is a strong disagreement amongst both parties of how you go about paying for such a thing. And I don't believe at this point in time, unfortunately, that we're close to resolving those issues. Now, that being said, we will get there at some point. This is too important of an issue for anyone to give up on, and we're not even close to doing that. We're never going to give up. But we also want to be realistic, and we explain in the newsletter exactly what's going on. It's cut and dry. We're going to give you all the information you need, but we're going to stay on top of this, and we'll have more to say in November. Nancy McGovern and I are attending the national conference of the Public Healthcare Roundtable. It's an association of all of the public healthcare systems across the country. Very similar, or one of the members, in fact, is the state GIC, and it's all of the GIC plans around the country. That conference takes place the first week of November. Nancy and I are going to use the opportunity while we're in DC to go up to Capitol Hill, meet with some key members of Congress from both parties, along with the congressional staff from both parties, whose responsibility it is to focus on Social Security issues. And I'm hoping that we can come back with some new information to share with all of you, just in terms of what's going on and what the outlook is going forward. Now, getting back to the newsletter, we have once again focused heavily on healthcare in this newsletter. everything from the Health Policy Commission, which you've heard me talk about recently on these videos. We also spend a lot of time talking about Medicare, both traditional Medicare supplement plans, which most of you are enrolled in, as well as the Medicare Advantage plans. And we are once again cautioning our members, whatever you do not drop your state or your local health insurance plan and sign up for one of these fly-by-night individual Medicare Advantage plans that you're seeing advertised on late night TV or getting phone calls about or having direct mail suddenly pop up in your mailbox. Throw it in the garbage, ignore it, do not drop your GIC or your local health insurance plans to sign up for one of these other less of quality plans. It is a huge mistake. The benefits you have right now are really second to none. There is no reason whatsoever why you should drop your state or your local health insurance in favor of one of these other plans. Just don't do it. So that being said, that's the main focus of the newsletter. We are very excited, again, to finally have this out the door and get it into your hands. Now, 2 final points before I log off. First of all, and you've heard me say this over the past couple of weeks, we are in the middle of our annual Political Action Committee drive. I want to say thank you to those of you who have taken the initiative to either donate online. In the past 2 weeks alone, we've seen well over 100 online donations, and the mail has started to roll into our office for those of you who have taken the initiative to send in a check or a cash payment. Don't send cash through the mail, send a check or donate online. It's much safer that way, but we very much appreciate your generosity. The PAC, of course, is a completely voluntary donation, but it is a critical part of the work we do here at Mass Retirees. That's why I continue to talk about it. That's why it's so important to us, and that's why we are just so appreciative to those of you who have made the effort to make a generous donation. Regardless of the amount of the donation, it's very much appreciated. Now, most importantly today, I want to say happy birthday to my daughter Abby, who turned 21 just yesterday on Thursday. There is nothing like having 2 adult children to make you feel old. But I also know just how blessed I am, how blessed my family is. I have 2 great kids. I have a great daughter-in-law. Things are good, so I'm not going to complain. But having my daughter now be 21, it's a bit upsetting, I think, as many of you could probably relate to. But again, thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back to you again next week. If you're in West Springfield today, please come on by to the Starrowtown Tavern and say hello. Bye-bye, everybody.